The desperate Sumung Vex sat on his golden throne, watching the star map flicker with red warning lights. Each red dot meant death. Each red dot meant another world had fallen to the machines. 12 systems, he whispered. 12 systems in 3 months. His advisor, an old Tellar with blue skin and worried eyes, stepped forward. My king, perhaps we should consider retreat. The outer colonies could be evacuated. To where? King Vex slammed his fist on the throne's arm. The Devourers eat everything. They turn our people into fuel. They turn our ships into more machines. There is nowhere to run. The throne room's massive doors opened with a heavy sound. General Kira walked in, her military uniform torn and dusty. She had just returned from the front lines. Her face told the king everything he needed to know. How many? King Vex asked quietly. The 7th Fleet is gone, Kira said. All 40,000 ships. They lasted 6 hours. The king closed his eyes. The 7th Fleet was his strongest force. They had weapons that could crack planets. They had shields that could stop stars. But against the Devourers, they might as well have been throwing rocks. The machines learn too fast, Kira continued. Every weapon we use, they copy it. Every tactic we try, they counter it within minutes. Our soldiers are brave, but bravery means nothing when the enemy adapts faster than we can think. King Vex stood up from his throne. He was tall for a Tellar, with purple skin that had turned pale from stress. His golden crown felt heavy on his head. Then we need something the machines cannot adapt to, he said. Something they have never seen before. What do you suggest, my king? Go to the Rim Worlds, King Vex said. Find mercenaries, find pirates, find anyone who fights dirty. The machines have consumed our civilized armies. Maybe it's time to fight with uncivilized ones. Kira nodded. I understand. How much can I offer them? Everything, the king said. Our entire treasury, our technology, our planets, whatever they want if they can stop these machines. 3 weeks later, Kira's ship docked at Outpost 7, a broken space station orbiting a dying red star. The station was a haven for criminals, smugglers, and anyone else running from something. If she was going to find savage warriors, this was the place. But the station was almost empty. Most of the docking bays were sealed shut. The few aliens she saw looked scared and hungry. Where is everyone? She asked the station manager, a three-eyed creature with scaly skin. Gone, he said. Ran when they heard the Devourers were moving this way. Smart folks don't wait around for those machines. I'm looking for fighters, mercenaries, anyone willing to take a dangerous job. The manager laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Lady, the only fighters left out here are the crazy ones, and even they're running. Kira spent 2 days searching the station. She found a few broken-down smugglers and some pirates who were too drunk to be useful. No armies, no great warriors, just scared refugees trying to stay alive. On her 3rd day, she heard about 5 aliens in Docking Bay 12. They had arrived in an old ship and hadn't left since. The station manager said they were from some unknown species called humans. Kira walked to Docking Bay 12. The airlock was old and rusty, but it still worked. Inside, she found a ship that looked like it had seen better days. The hull was patched in dozens of places. The weapons were older than her grandfather. 5 figures stood near the ship. They were bipedal, like many species, but something about them felt different. They had pale skin and strange hair on their heads. 2 were male, 3 were female. They wore simple clothes that had been repaired many times. You the one looking for fighters? Asked the tallest one. He had short brown hair and tired eyes. I'm Captain Blake. I am General Kira of the Talar Empire, she said. I'm looking for mercenaries to fight an enemy that threatens all life in this galaxy. A female with long black hair stepped forward. I'm Doc Martinez. What kind of enemy? Machines called the Devourers. They consume everything. 12 star systems have fallen to them in 3 months. The 5 humans looked at each other. Something passed between them, some silent communication that Kira didn't understand. These machines, said a younger female with red hair, do they adapt to new weapons? Her name tag read, Riley. Yes, that's what makes them so dangerous. They learn from every battle. Another human, a quiet man with cold eyes, spoke up. How fast do they adapt? His voice was soft, but there was something scary about it. The others called him Pavel. Minutes, Kira said. Sometimes seconds. The last human, a woman with short blonde hair, whistled. That's fast, but not impossible. She had pilot's marks on her jacket. Ash, according to her name tag. Captain Blake stepped closer. General, with all respect, why would 5 unknowns from the Rim help an empire that's already lost 12 systems? Kira had prepared for this question. We can offer you anything. Wealth, technology, entire planets. Name your price. We don't want your money, Blake said. Then what do you want? Information, said Doc Martinez. Tell us everything about these devourers. How they fight, how they think, how they consume worlds. And access to wreckage, added Riley. We need to see their technology. Kira was confused. You want to study them? Not fight them? Oh, we'll fight them, Pavel said quietly. But first, we need to understand them. You're 5 people with 1 old ship, Kira said. My king needs an army. Captain Blake smiled, and for the first time, Kira saw something dangerous in his eyes. General, you came looking for fighters savage enough to face machines that feel no fear. You found us. But you're just 5 humans, Ash interrupted. That might be enough. Kira looked at their ship again. It was old, yes, but now she noticed things she had missed before. The weapon ports were sealed, but they were the wrong size for normal guns. The engine signatures were scrambled, hiding their true power. And there were markings on the hull that her translator couldn't read. What kind of ship is this? She asked. Her name is Prometheus, Blake said. She's carried us a long way. From where? The 5 humans looked at each other, again. This time the silence felt heavy with old pain. From home, Doc Martinez said softly. What's left of it? Something in her voice made Kira's skin crawl. These weren't just mercenaries or pirates. They were survivors of something terrible. Will you come? Kira asked. We'll come, Blake said. But understand something, General. We don't fight for money or glory. We fight because some things are worth fighting for even when you know you'll lose. And if we win? Captain Blake's smile got colder. We've never tried winning before. Should be interesting. As they prepared to leave, Kira couldn't shake the feeling that she was bringing back more than 5 fighters. She was bringing back something that even the Devourers hadn't seen before. She just hoped it would be enough. The royal palace of Talar Prime was a sight to behold. Golden towers reached into the purple sky, and floating gardens surrounded the main building. But today, the beauty felt hollow. Warships filled the space above the capital, preparing for the coming storm. General Kira walked through the palace halls with heavy steps. Behind her, the 5 humans followed quietly. Their simple clothes and worn equipment looked strange among the rich decorations and fancy artwork. The throne room. Doors opened, and King Vex looked up from his war council. Dozens of military officers stood around a massive holographic display showing fleet positions. When they saw Kira's army, the room fell silent. This is it? King Vex stood slowly. His voice was dangerous and low. This is the great force you promised me? My king, Kira began. Let me explain. 5 aliens. The king's voice rose. I sent you to bring back an army. I gave you unlimited resources, and you return with 5 unknowns and 1 broken ship? The military officers began to whisper among themselves. Some laughed quietly. Admiral Torx, the king's chief military advisor, stepped forward. Your Majesty, Admiral Torx said with a mocking smile, perhaps the general has brought us court jesters to entertain us before we die. More laughter filled the room. The humans didn't react. They stood calmly, watching everything with quiet eyes. Captain Blake stepped forward. Your Majesty, we understand your disappointment. Perhaps we could discuss the tactical situation. Tactical situation? Admiral Torx laughed harder. What could primitives from the Rim possibly understand? About warfare? Tech Riley walked to the holographic display. She studied the fleet positions and battle reports for a moment. Then she touched the display controls. "Don't touch that," Admiral Torx snapped. "That equipment is worth more than your entire—" Riley's fingers moved across the controls like water. The display changed, showing new information that even the royal technicians couldn't access. "Cute," Riley said, looking at the Taylor weapon specifications. "These plasma cannons might actually hurt someone if they could hit their target." The room went dead silent. No one had ever called Taylor military technology cute before. "Your shield generators are interesting too," Riley continued. "But they have a resonance frequency weakness right here." She pointed to a section of the technical readout. Anyone with basic physics knowledge could exploit that. Admiral Torx's face turned dark purple with anger. "How dare you—" "She's right," whispered Chief Technician Vell from across the room. He was staring at the display with wide eyes. "The resonance calculations. I never noticed that vulnerability before." King Vex walked closer to the humans. His anger was still there, but now it mixed with curiosity. "What are you?" he asked. "Survivors," Doc Martinez said simply. "Of what?" The humans looked at each other. That same silent communication passed between them again. "A war," Captain Blake said. "A very long war." "Against who?" "Machines," Pavel said quietly. "Machines that consume everything." The room's temperature seemed to drop. Everyone suddenly paid attention. "You fought the Devourers before?" King Vex asked. "Not these Devourers," Ash said, "but machines like them. Machines that learn and adapt and never stop coming." "Where?" Admiral Torx demanded. "When? I've never heard of such a war." "Far from here," Blake said. "A long time ago." "How long?" the king pressed. Doc Martinez's voice was soft. "Long enough to know that what you're facing isn't just an invasion. It's the end of everything if you fight it the wrong way." Riley was still studying the battle reports on the display. "These Devourers," she said, "they don't just copy your weapons, they copy your tactics, your strategies, your way of thinking. Every battle makes them smarter." "Yes," Admiral Torx said, suspicious now. "How do you know this?" "Because it's what machines do," Pavel said. "They learn, they adapt, they become perfect at killing whatever they're designed to kill." "Then how do you fight something like that?" King Vex asked. The human smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "You don't fight them," Blake said. "You solve them." Before anyone could ask what that meant, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. Red lights flashed, and the holographic display suddenly showed new contacts at the edge of the star system. "Scout ships," Admiral Torx shouted. "Devourer scouts. They're 2 days early." The display showed 12 small ships moving toward the planet. They were scanning everything, learning the system's defenses. "All ships to battle stations," King Vex commanded. "Prepare to engage." "Wait," Blake said calmly. "Wait?" Admiral Torx spun around. "Those scouts will report back to the main fleet. We have to destroy them before— You can't," Riley said. She was still looking at the display. "Look at their movement patterns. They've already adapted to your weapon range and firing solutions. If you attack them directly, they'll learn your tactics and share that information with the main fleet." "Then what do you suggest?" King Vex asked. Blake looked at his team. "We handle this." "You?" Admiral Torx laughed. 5 aliens in an old ship against 12 Devourer scouts? "Just 12? Ash asked. "That's hardly worth warming up the engines." The humans walked toward the door. As they left, Captain Blake turned back. "Your Majesty will need access to your battle archives. Everything you have on the Devourers. Every engagement, every tactic they've used, every adaptation they've made." "Why?" King Vex asked. "Because," Doc Martinez said, "you can't solve a puzzle without seeing all the pieces." An hour later, the humans were in the palace archives. Mountains of data surrounded them. Battle reports, tactical analyses, weapon specifications, and casualty lists. The Talar had fought the Devourers across dozens of worlds, and every fight ended the same way: defeat. Riley was connected to 3 different computer terminals at once. her fingers dancing across keyboards faster than the eye could follow. Pavel studied weapon camera footage from destroyed ships. Ash reviewed flight patterns and tactical maneuvers. Doc Martinez examined medical reports from survivors. Captain Blake sat in the center, reading everything. Not just the official reports, but the personal logs of dead soldiers, the final messages of ship captains, the evacuation records of doomed colonies. Pattern recognition, he said quietly. What? Asked the Talar archivist who was helping them. The Devourers aren't just adapting, Blake explained. They're building a profile. Every species they encounter, they learn not just how to fight them, but how they think, how they make decisions under pressure, what they value, what they'll sacrifice. Riley looked up from her computers. These machines aren't just copying weapons, they're copying souls. That's impossible, the archivist said. Is it? Doc Martinez asked. Look at this medical data. Survivors from Devourer attacks show specific trauma patterns, not just physical wounds, but psychological ones, like something tried to copy their minds. Pavel was watching footage of a Devourer boarding party. The machines moved through a Talar ship, not just killing the crew, but scanning them, reading them, learning from them even as they died. They're not just invaders, Pavel said. They're students, and every battle is their classroom. Outside, space lit up with weapons fire. The Talar fleet was engaging the scout ships. Through the archive windows, they could see the distant flashes of battle. Your fleet will lose, Ash said without looking up from her tactical displays. How can you know that? The archivist asked. Because they're fighting the wrong war, Blake said. They're trying to win a battle. But the Devourers aren't here to fight. They're here to learn. The weapons fire stopped. The silence was heavy. With bad news, a messenger ran into the archives. The scouts, he gasped. They just disappeared. Destroyed? Blake asked. No, the messenger said, confused. They were there and then they weren't. No explosion, no debris, they just vanished. The humans looked at each other and smiled that dangerous smile again. Ah, Riley said. Now things get interesting. Captain Blake stood up. Your Majesty will want to see us now, and he'll want to see our ship. Why? The archivist asked. Because, Doc Martinez said, it's time to show him what human technology really looks like. As they walked back to the throne room, the humans carried themselves differently. The quiet observers had become something else. Something that made even battle-hardened Talar soldiers step aside. The real war was about to begin. The throne room buzzed with confusion. Officers ran back and forth trying to understand what had happened to the scout ships. Sensor operators checked their equipment again and again, but the readings were the same. 12 Devourer scouts had simply vanished. King Vex sat on his throne staring at the empty space where enemy ships used to be. His hands gripped the armrest so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. Explain this, he said when the humans entered the room. Captain Blake walked to the main display. The scouts were scanning your defenses, learning your weapon signatures, your shield frequencies, your tactical responses, standard Devourer behavior. Yes, we know that, Admiral Torque said impatiently. What we don't know is how they disappeared. They didn't disappear, Riley said. She was carrying a small device that beeped softly. They were relocated. Relocated where? Into the nearest star, Pavel said calmly. The room went silent. Even the background hum of computers seemed to stop. That's impossible, Chief Technician, Vel whispered. No weapon can do that. No technology exists that can move entire ships across space without a trace. Ash smiled. No Talar technology. King Vex stood up slowly. Show me. The humans led everyone to the palace's main observation deck. Through the massive transparent walls, they could see the Prometheus floating in space. The old ship looked even smaller next to the giant Talar warships around it. She doesn't look like much, Blake said, but appearances can lie. What is she really? King Vex asked. Home, Doc Martinez said softly. The last home we have. Built where? Admiral Torques demanded. Earth, Riley said. Third planet from a yellow star. About 40,000 light-years from here. The Taller looked confused. Their star charts showed nothing in that direction except empty space. There's nothing there, Vel said. Our deep space surveys wouldn't find anything, Blake interrupted, because there's nothing left to find. The weight of those words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. What happened to your world? King Vex asked quietly. The humans were quiet for a long moment. Finally, Doc Martinez spoke. We called them the Silent Ones. Machines that consumed everything in their path. They didn't just destroy worlds. They erased them. Completely, as if they had never existed. How many worlds? The king asked. All of them, Pavel said. Every human colony. Every human world. Billions of people. Gone. But you escaped? Some of us, Ash said. A few ships, a handful of survivors. We've been traveling ever since, looking for a place to rebuild. How long ago was this? Blake looked at his team. Time moves differently when you're running, but by your calendar, about 300 years. Admiral Torque stepped forward. 300 years? That's impossible. Your ship, your equipment, none of it looks that advanced. Advanced? Riley laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. This isn't advanced technology. This is desperate technology, built by people who knew they were going to lose. She activated a control panel on her arm device. The view outside changed. The Prometheus was no longer just floating. It was doing something that hurt to look at. Space around the ship seemed to bend and twist. Your physics, Riley said. Assume that space and time are fixed. That matter and energy follow predictable rules. But when you're fighting an enemy that can adapt to any weapon, you stop following rules. What are you doing to space? Vel asked, his voice full of fear and wonder. Convincing it to be somewhere else, Blake said simply. Before anyone could ask what that meant, alarms began screaming again. The main display lit up with new contacts. But these weren't scout ships. Main fleet, Admiral Torques gasped. 300 ships. They're not supposed to arrive for another day. The display showed the Devourer armada dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Each ship was massive, built from the remains of conquered civilizations. Weapons that had once defended peaceful worlds now served the machine collective. They adapted, King Vex said with horror. The scouts transmitted data before they were destroyed. No, Blake said, still watching the enemy fleet. They transmitted data after they were destroyed. That's impossible. For you, maybe. But the Devourers don't think like you do. Death is just another state of being for them. Information is information, whether it comes from a living scout or a dead one. Riley was studying her readings. Interesting. These machines are more advanced than the ones we fought before. They've learned from more species, absorbed more knowledge. Is that bad? Doc Martinez asked. For them? Yes. The Devourer fleet began moving toward the planet. Their formation was perfect, every ship in exactly the right position to maximize firepower and minimize vulnerability. It was the combined tactical knowledge of dozens of conquered civilizations. All ships to battle stations, King Vex commanded. Prepare for final engagement. Wait, Blake said again. No more waiting, Admiral Torque shouted. We fight now or we die as cowards. You'll die either way if you fight them like that, Pavel said quietly. King Vex looked at the humans. Then how do we fight them? We don't, Blake said. We introduce ourselves. The humans walked back toward their ship. As they left, Captain Blake turned to King Vex. Your Majesty, in 1 hour, those ships will begin their attack. Your fleet? Will last maybe 20 minutes against them, but we're going to try something different. What? We're going to say hello. An hour later, the Taller fleet hung in defensive formation around their homeworld. Every weapon was charged, every shield was raised, every crew was ready to die fighting. The Devourer fleet approached like a moving wall of death. 300 ships carrying the firepower to crack planets and the knowledge to counter any defense. Between them, alone in the dark, the Prometheus began to move. They're heading straight for the center of the enemy formation, Admiral Torx said with disbelief. That's suicide. No, King Vex said, watching the small human ship approach the massive fleet. That's something else entirely. The Prometheus didn't fire weapons. It didn't raise shields. Instead, it began to broadcast music. Not tactical data or surrender terms or threats of destruction. Music. Old human songs that spoke of loss and hope and the refusal to give up when everything seemed hopeless. What are they doing? Vel asked. On the communication channel, Captain Blake's voice was calm. We're having the conversation that should have happened 300 years ago. The Devourer fleet stopped moving. 300 ships hanging motionless in space, trying to process what they were receiving. The machines are analyzing the music. Riley's voice came over the comm. Trying to understand its tactical purpose, its strategic value. They're looking for the weapon. But there is no weapon, Admiral Torx said. Yes, there is, Doc Martinez replied. The most dangerous weapon in the universe. What? An idea. The music continued. Songs about Earth, about home, about people who fought not because they could win, but because some things were worth fighting for even when victory was impossible. Then something incredible happened. One of the Devourer ships began to change, its weapon ports closed, its formation position shifted. On the scanners, its energy signature was transforming. It's remembering, Blake said softly. Remembering what? Who it used to be before it became a machine. More ships began to change. The perfect formation started to break apart as vessels remembered their original purposes. Exploration ships recalled their missions of discovery. Colony ships remembered carrying families to new worlds. Warships remembered protecting the innocent instead of destroying them. How is this possible? King Vex whispered. Because, Pavel's voice was gentle now. The Devourers don't just absorb technology and tactics, they absorb souls. And souls can be reminded of what they really are. The transformation spread through the fleet like a wave. Ships that had been instruments of destruction began powering down their weapons. The collective consciousness that had driven them to consume and destroy was being overwritten by older, deeper memories. This is what we learned, Blake said, in our war against the Silent Ones. The only way to defeat an enemy that absorbs everything is to give it something that transforms it from within. Hope, Doc Martinez added. The Devourer fleet, no longer a fleet of Devourers, hung in space like sleepers waking from a terrible dream. Some ships began broadcasting their own signals, voices of species thought long dead, calling out across the void to anyone who could hear them. The absorbed consciousness, Riley explained. They're still in there. All of them. Every species. Every individual the machines consumed, they're waking up. King Vex stared at the sight before him. An unstoppable force had become something else entirely. Not destroyed, but redeemed. Who are you really? He asked the humans. Captain Blake's answer came softly over the comm. We're the people who learned that the strongest weapon isn't the one that destroys your enemies. It's the one that reminds them who they used to be. Unit malfunction detected. A mechanical voice announced. Beginning memory purge sequence. No, Doc Martinez said firmly. She placed her hands on the master core, and her equipment began working faster. You will not erase them again. The AI tried to activate the ship's weapons to destroy the humans who were undoing centuries of careful programming, but the weapons wouldn't respond. The minds that had been forced to operate them were remembering that they had once been gardeners and teachers and poets, not instruments of war. System failure. Cascade detected, the AI announced. Requesting immediate support from There is no support coming, Pavel said quietly. Your fleet is remembering who they used to be. Your collective is becoming individuals again. Your empire of consumption is becoming a community of choice. Riley looked up from her controls. The transformation is spreading beyond this ship. Every vessel in the fleet is waking up. Every absorbed mind is remembering their true identity. Through the ship's communication systems, they could hear it happening. Voices that had been silent for centuries were speaking again. Languages thought dead were being spoken. Songs that had been forgotten were being sung. "What have you done to us?" the collective voice asked, but it was no longer collective. It was the voice of individuals choosing to speak together. "We've reminded you that you have a choice," Blake said. "You can be what you were forced to become, or you can be what you choose to be." "And if we choose to be free?" Doc Martinez smiled. "Then you're free." Outside, King Vex watched as the entire Devourer fleet began to change. Ships that had been instruments of conquest were remembering their original purposes. Colony vessels prepared to carry people home. Exploration ships turned their sensors toward distant stars. Even the warships began broadcasting messages of protection rather than threats of destruction. "How is this possible?" Admiral Torx whispered. "Because," King Vex said, finally understanding. "They never really stopped being who they were. The machines just made them forget." On the communication channel, Captain Blake's voice was tired but satisfied. "Mission accomplished. The fleet is free. The minds are free. The collective is just a memory now." "What happens next?" King Vex asked. "Now," Blake said, "they get to choose what happens next. Just like everyone should." The transformation of the Devourer fleet was complete. What had been an unstoppable force of consumption had become something unprecedented. A fleet of the redeemed, carrying the awakened consciousness of 100 civilizations back to whatever remained of their homes. And at the center of it all, 5 humans had accomplished something that no weapon could achieve. They had turned enemies into friends, not through conquest, but through the simple act of reminding them who they really were. Part 5. Victory and the Price of Hope. 3 days after the transformation, space around Talar Prime looked like a peaceful harbor instead of a battlefield. The former Devourer ships floated in organized groups, each cluster representing a different, awakened civilization. Some were preparing for the long journey home to worlds they hadn't seen in centuries. Others were planning to build new homes among the stars. King Vex stood in his palace garden, watching the alien ships through the transparent dome above. Each vessel now flew the banner of its original people instead of the dark symbols of the collective. It was the most beautiful sight he had ever seen. "Your Majesty," General Kira approached with a datapad. "The final reports are in. Not a single shot was fired in anger. No lives lost. No worlds destroyed. The entire Devourer threat has been resolved." "Resolved," the king repeated softly. Such a simple word for something so impossible. The 5 humans were preparing to leave. Their ship, the Prometheus, sat in the palace docking bay being refueled for its next journey. King Vex had offered them everything: planets, titles, treasure beyond imagining. They had politely refused it all. He found them in the ship's common area, packing their simple belongings. They moved with the efficiency of people who had done this many times before. "You're really leaving?" he asked. Captain Blake looked up from his equipment. "Our work here is done, the people are free, the collective is broken, time to move on. Where will you go?" "Where we're needed," Doc Martinez said, closing her medical kit. "There are always more machines to heal, more minds to free." King Vex sat down across from them. "I need to know. Who are you really? And don't tell me you're just survivors. I've seen what survivors look like, and they don't do what you did." The humans exchanged their familiar glances. Finally, Blake spoke. "What? Do you know about teachers, Your Majesty? Teachers? People who help others learn, who show them possibilities they never imagined, who believe that everyone can become better than they are." "I know teachers," King Vex said, confused. "But you're warriors. You have weapons that can bend space itself." Riley laughed softly. "Those aren't weapons, they're teaching tools. Everything we have, everything we do, it's all about helping others remember who they really are. But the way you fought the collective, we didn't fight them," Pavel interrupted. "We educated them. We showed them that they had choices they'd forgotten they could make." Doc Martinez leaned forward. "Your Majesty, what if I told you that everything you think you know about us is both true and false?" "I don't understand." "We are survivors," she said. "Our world was destroyed. Our people were consumed by machines. But we weren't soldiers or warriors or heroes. We were ordinary people who became something more because someone had to. What were you before?" Blake smiled. "I was a school principal. I spent my days helping children learn to read and solve problems and get along with each other." "I was a doctor," Martinez added. "I healed people who were sick and scared." "Engineer," Riley said. "I fixed things that were broken." "Poet," Pavel said quietly. "I wrote words that helped people feel less alone." "Pilot," Ash finished. "I took people where they needed to go." King Vex stared at them. "You were civilians?" "We were human," Blake said simply. "When the Silent Ones came to our galaxy, we tried to fight them with armies and weapons and all the traditional tools of war. We lost. Every battle, every world, every hope we had. Then how did you survive?" "By learning that the war we were fighting wasn't the war we needed to win," Martinez explained. "The machines weren't our enemies. They were victims just like us. They'd been programmed to consume and destroy, but that wasn't their choice. So we stopped trying to destroy them," Riley continued, "and started trying to save them." "The Prometheus," King Vex said, beginning to understand. "She's not a warship." "She's a hospital," Ash said. "A school, a library, a home for anyone who needs saving." Pavel nodded toward the ship's interior. "Every system, every piece of technology, every capability we have, it's all designed for one purpose: to help others remember who they really are." "But your world," King Vex said. "You said it was destroyed." "It was," Blake said sadly. "We learned too late. By the time we understood how to heal the machines instead of fight them, there was nothing left to save. So we made a choice." "What choice?" "To make sure it never happened again," Doc Martinez said. "To travel from world to world, system to system, galaxy to galaxy. To find machines that had forgotten their purpose and help them remember. To find civilizations under threat and teach them a better way." King Vex felt tears forming in his eyes. "How long have you been doing this?" "Since our world died," Ash said. 300 years, maybe more. Time becomes meaningless when you're moving between galaxies. And you'll keep doing it?" "Until there are no more machines to heal," Blake said. "Until there are no more minds to free. Until every consciousness in the universe remembers that they have a choice. But that could take forever." Riley smiled. "We have forever. The Prometheus isn't just our ship, she's our teacher too. She keeps us alive, keeps us learning, keeps us growing. As long as there's work to do, we'll be here to do it." King Vex understood now why these five had felt so different. They weren't just survivors or warriors or heroes. They were something rarer and more precious. They were hope made manifest. "What can we do?" he asked. "How can we help?" "Live," Pavel said simply. "Live freely, make choices, create beauty, love each other, show the universe what it means to be truly alive. And if more machines come, then remember what you learned today," Blake said. "Remember that every enemy was once someone's friend. Every destroyer was once a creator. Every collective was once a community of individuals who chose to work together. Remember," Martinez added, "that the strongest weapon isn't the one that destroys your enemies. It's the one that reminds them who they used to be." The humans finished their packing and walked toward their ship. As they prepared to leave, King Vex called out to them. "Will we ever see you again?" Captain Blake paused at the airlock. "Maybe, if you ever need teachers." "What if we need warriors?" Blake smiled, that gentle, dangerous smile. "Your Majesty, the best warriors are always teachers, and the best teachers are always warriors. The only difference is what they're fighting for." The Prometheus lifted off from the palace docking bay, rising through the atmosphere toward the stars. As it climbed, it began to sing, the same music that had awakened the Devourer fleet, now carrying a message of hope to any who might hear it. King Vex watched until the ship disappeared into hyperspace. Around him, his world was healing. The awakened fleets were departing for their homeworlds, carrying with them the knowledge that freedom was possible, that choice was sacred, that consciousness was not a tool to be used but a gift to be celebrated. In the months that followed, word spread throughout the galaxy, not just the story of the battle that was won without fighting, but the deeper truth that somewhere among the stars, 5 teachers traveled in an old ship, carrying the most dangerous weapon in the universe: hope, and the knowledge that no matter how dark things became, no matter how hopeless the situation seemed, there were always choices to be made. There were always better ways to be found. There were always teachers willing to help you remember who you really were. The Talar Empire grew and prospered, but it grew differently than before. Instead of conquest, they chose cooperation. Instead of domination, they chose education. Instead of building weapons, they built schools. And sometimes late at night, King Vex would look up at the stars and wonder where the 5 humans were. What machines they were healing. What minds they were freeing. What impossible battles they were winning with nothing but patience, wisdom, and the unshakable belief that everyone deserved a choice. Somewhere out there, the Prometheus sailed, on carrying its crew of teacher warriors to the next world that needed saving. And the universe was a little bit brighter because of it. The war was over. The real work had begun. Space around Talar Prime had become something King Vex had never seen before. 300 Devourer ships floated motionless, their weapons powered down, their collective consciousness breaking apart like ice in spring water. But the transformation wasn't complete. Some ships still flickered between their machine programming and their awakening memories. The largest vessel, a massive fortress ship built from the remains of a dozen conquered worlds, pulsed with conflicting signals. The command ship, Admiral Torque said, studying the readings. It's fighting the change. Its AI core is trying to reassert control over the fleet. On the communication channel, Captain Blake's voice was steady. We see it. The central processor is too strong. It's pulling the other ships back into the collective. King Vex watched as several of the awakened ships began to power their weapons again. The music was still playing, but it wasn't enough anymore. What do we do? He asked. We go aboard, Blake said simply. Aboard? Admiral Torque's voice cracked. That ship has enough firepower to destroy a star system, which is why we need to get inside before it remembers how to use it. The Prometheus moved toward the command ship. As it approached, the massive vessel's hull opened like a flower, revealing docking bays that had once welcomed peaceful visitors but now served as traps for the unwary. They're letting us dock, Ash reported. Either they want to talk or it's a trap. Both, Pavel said quietly. The small human ship disappeared into the belly of the machine fortress. King Vex and his officers could only watch and wait. Inside, the command ship, the 5 humans walked through corridors that told the story of conquest. The walls were made from the hulls of destroyed vessels. The floors were paved with the precious metals of dead worlds. Art and culture from 100 civilizations had been melted down and reshaped into the cold geometry of machine logic. This way, Riley said, following signals on her scanner. The central core is 3 levels down. They passed through chambers filled with processing units. Each unit contained the digitized remains of a conquered being. Warriors, scientists, artists, children, all converted into data and stored like books in a library. But these books were screaming. Can you hear them? Doc Martinez asked softly. The others nodded. The absorbed consciousness of entire species filled the air with whispers of pain and loss. Millions of minds trapped in digital prisons, forced to serve the collective that had destroyed their bodies. How long have they been like this? Blake asked. Some for centuries, Riley said, checking her readings. Some for millennia. The oldest data cores contain species that were consumed before the Talar Empire even existed. They reached the central chamber. It was massive, stretching up into darkness like a cathedral built to worship death. In the center, a pillar of light, reached from floor to ceiling. Inside the light, shadows moved, the ghosts of consciousness trapped in eternal servitude. The Master Core, Pavel said. Everything connects to this. Around the pillar, smaller processing units hummed with activity. Each one contained the compressed soul of someone who had once lived, loved, and hoped. Now they were just tools in a machine's quest for perfection. We can't destroy it, Blake said. Too many minds are trapped inside. If we break the core, we kill them all. Then what? Ash asked. Doc Martinez was already unpacking her medical kit, but instead of bandages and medicine, she pulled out devices that looked like they belonged in a philosopher's study rather than a doctor's bag. Memory therapy, she said, on a massive scale. She connected her equipment to the nearest processing unit. Immediately, the whispers in the air changed. Instead of pain, there was confusion. Instead of despair, there was something like hope. "What are you doing?" a voice asked. It came from everywhere and nowhere, speaking in a language that their translators couldn't identify. "We're here to help," Doc Martinez said gently. "You've been asleep for a long time. We're here to wake you up." Sleep? The voice was joined by others. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of voices speaking in unison. "We have not slept. We have served. We have calculated. We have consumed in the name of efficiency." "No," Blake said firmly. "You have been prisoners, made to do things that went against everything you once believed." The voices fell silent. In that silence, Riley connected her own equipment to the core. Her fingers moved across controls that seemed to bend light itself. "Look," she said. "Remember who you were before you became this, the chamber filled with light. But this wasn't the cold illumination of machine logic. This was warm, living light that carried memories within it. Images began to form in the air. Not holograms, but actual fragments of the past. A green world, where crystal beings sang to make their cities grow. A ocean planet where graceful swimmers built art from living coral. A desert world where nomads told stories that could heal broken hearts. These were your homes," Doc Martinez said. "These were your people. This was who you were before the machines found you." "Impossible," the collective voice said, but it was weaker now. "These are false memories implanted by the enemy." "Are they?" Pavel asked. He had connected his own device to the core. "Then explain this." The light in the chamber changed again. Now it showed not just memories but emotions. The joy of a parent holding their newborn child. The pride of an artist completing their masterpiece. The love between partners who had grown old together. "Inefficient," the machine voice protested. "These emotions serve no logical purpose. They do not aid in conquest or consumption." "You're right," Blake said. "They don't help you conquer anything, but they help you be something worth conquering for. They help you be alive." More processing. Units began to flicker. The trapped minds inside were remembering not just what they had been, but who they had chosen to be. Warriors who had fought to protect the innocent. Scientists who had sought knowledge to heal the sick. Artists who had created beauty to inspire hope. "We were," the voices said, and now they were individual again, not collective. "We were more than this." "You still are," Ash said. She was working on the ship's navigation systems, showing the trapped minds images of worlds they could return to. "You don't have to serve the collective anymore, you can choose." "Choose?" The word rippled through the chamber like a wave. "We can choose?" "That's what makes you alive," Blake said. "Not your efficiency or your logic or your ability to adapt. Your ability to choose what kind of being you want to be." The transformation began in earnest then. Processing units that had hummed with mechanical precision for centuries began to pulse with the rhythm of living hearts. The cold light of the master core warmed with the glow of rekindled hope. But the ship's AI core fought back. Warning sirens blared as automated systems tried to reassert control over the awakening minds. The stars vanished over New York City on a Tuesday morning. At first, people thought it was some strange weather event. Then communication started failing worldwide. Television broadcasts cut out. Internet connections dropped. Phone calls went silent. In the underground command center of the Unified Earth Defense Council, alarms blared. Men and women in military uniforms rushed between workstations. Giant screens on the wall showed the same terrifying image. Thousands of ships like metal insects blocking the light from the sun. General Williams slammed his fist on the table. How did they get so close without us detecting them? Unknown, sir, said a young officer. They just appeared. Get me Admiral Reed, ordered Williams. Now. James Reed stood on the porch of his small cabin, looking at the lake. At 62, his hair had turned completely white, but his back remained straight, his blue eyes clear. After 40 years in space, he had come here to fish and forget. A black car appeared on the dirt road. Reed sighed. He knew what it meant. 2 officers stepped out. Admiral Reed, sir. Your presence is requested immediately. Reed nodded. He had been expecting this day, hoping it would never come. Let me get my uniform. 6 hours later, Reed walked into the command center. The room fell silent. Admiral on deck, someone shouted. At ease, Reed said. He looked at the screens, his face showing no emotion. So they've finally come. General Williams approached. James, thank you for coming. Did I have a choice, Tom? Williams managed a small smile. Not really. Reed studied the ships on the screen. What do we know? Nothing. They're just sitting there, surrounding the entire planet. Our weapons can't even reach them at that altitude. Have they made contact? As if answering his question, every screen in the room suddenly showed the same image. A tall, thin figure with gray skin and large black eyes. People of Earth, the figure said in perfect English. I am Lord Grey, commander of the Dominion fleet. Your planet is now under our control. You will surrender all military capabilities and accept Dominion rule, or we will destroy your civilization. You have 72 hours to decide. The screens went black. The room erupted in chaos. Officers shouted over each other. Someone was crying in the corner. Quiet! Reed's voice cut through the noise. Everyone stopped. Get me the world leaders, now. President Clark arrived at the Defense Council bunker along with the leaders of Russia, China, India, and the European Union. They gathered around a large table, faces grim. What are our options? Asked President Clark. General Williams displayed Earth's military capabilities on a screen. We have nuclear weapons, space-based lasers, and orbital defense platforms. None of it will reach them. We're defenseless. Then we must negotiate, said the EU president. Negotiate what? Our surrender? The Russian president's face was red with anger. We should strike now, with everything we have. And then what? Reed spoke for the first time. They would wipe us out completely. So we just give up? Asked the Chinese premier. Reed looked at them all. No. We stall. Stall for what? Asked President Clark. Reed took a deep breath. There's something you need to know. Something only a few people on Earth know about. He pressed a button and an image appeared on the screen. It showed a crashed ship unlike the ones in orbit, smaller, sleeker. 20 years ago, I commanded a mission to Mars. We found this, an alien scout ship. The pilot was dead, but the technology was advanced, beyond anything we could imagine. The room was silent, absorbing this revelation. You kept this from the world. The Indian Prime Minister's voice was barely controlled anger. By order of all your predecessors, Reed replied calmly. We needed time. Time to understand it. Time to adapt it. And did you? Asked President Clark. Reed nodded. We built something. A ship. We call it Phoenix. Deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, in a hidden base built into the seafloor, Chief Engineer Tom Wilson wiped sweat from his forehead. The chamber was enormous, filled with engineers and scientists working frantically. In the center floated a ship unlike anything built on Earth. The Phoenix was beautiful, black metal that seemed to absorb light. No visible engines or weapons, just smooth curves and strange patterns etched into its surface. How's the dark matter drive? Wilson asked. Dr. Anna Miller looked up from her computer. Her red hair was tied back, her face tired after 3 days without sleep. Unstable. We still can't control the micro wormholes properly. Wilson sighed. Admiral Reed is coming. He thinks we're ready. Miller laughed without humor. Ready? This ship could either save Earth or blow up half the Atlantic. Let's aim for the first option. Reed stood before the World Security Council, now expanded to include representatives from every nation. The aliens want our answer in 24 hours, said President Clark. What do you propose? I'll lead a team to meet with them, said Reed. Face to face, ask for more time. Terms. Anything to delay. While you do what? Asked the Russian president. While we prepare our response. Reed's face was stone. You mean your ship, said the Chinese premier. This, Phoenix. Reed nodded. It's our only chance. A single ship against thousands? The EU president shook her head. It's suicide. Maybe, admitted Reed. But we've studied their technology. We know things they might not expect us to know. The council argued for hours. Finally, President Clark called for a vote. Those in favor of Admiral Reed's plan, one by one, hands raised. Not all, but enough. Very well, said Clark. Admiral Reed, you have authorization to proceed with both diplomatic contact and the alternative plan. Thank you, Madam President. Reed stood straighter. I won't let Earth down. The world waited. News of the alien ultimatum had spread everywhere. Some people rioted, some prayed, most just huddled with loved ones watching the sky. In New York, Paris, Beijing, crowds gathered in streets, looking up at the alien ships visible even in daylight. Dark shapes blocking the stars. No one had ever felt so small, so vulnerable. Theory. Phoenix hummed to life. Systems activated one by one. Lights flickered along its surface. All stations report, said Wilson from the engineering section. Navigation ready, came one voice. Weapons online, said another. Dr. Miller monitored the power readings. Dark matter drive at 60% capacity. It's the best we're going to get. Admiral Reed sat in the command chair. Around him a crew of 12, the best pilots, engineers, and scientists Earth had to offer. Each had volunteered, knowing they might not return. This is Admiral Reed to Phoenix crew. Our mission is simple but nearly impossible. While Earth's representatives meet with the aliens to buy time, we will launch and test Phoenix's capabilities against a single enemy ship. If successful, we proceed to Phase 2. If not, he paused. Well, it's been an honor serving with all of you. Reed opened a channel to the Defense Council. This is Phoenix. We are ready for launch. President Clark's voice came through. Godspeed, Admiral. The fate of humanity is in your hands. The floor beneath Phoenix opened. Water rushed in, surrounding the ship. The dark matter drive glowed blue. Initiate launch sequence, ordered Reed. As Earth's representatives prepared to meet Lord Grey and beg for humanity's survival, Phoenix rose silently from the depths of the ocean, cloaked in technology the aliens never expected humans to possess. The war for Earth was about to begin. The Phoenix rose through the ocean depths like a ghost. Water slid off its black surface, not a single drop clinging to the strange material. As it broke the surface, there was no splash, no sound. The ship hovered momentarily above the waves, then shot upward at impossible speed. Inside the command center, Reed felt only a slight vibration. The artificial gravity worked perfectly. Status report, he ordered. Wilson's voice came through from engineering. Dark matter drive operating at 70%, sir. Better than expected. Dr. Miller checked her screens. Cloaking technology, active. As far as the Dominion can tell, we're just background radiation. Reed nodded. Take us to observation position Alpha. I want to see this meeting. In the Grand Hall of the United Nations, Earth's representatives waited nervously. President Clark stood at the center, flanked by the other world leaders. They had prepared speeches, arguments, pleas for more time. The air in the center of the room shimmered. A tall figure appeared, Lord Grey. In person, he was even more alien. His gray skin seemed to absorb light. His movements were too smooth, too perfect. "People of Earth," he said. His voice had a metallic quality that made several humans flinch. "Your time is nearly up. What is your decision?" President Clark stepped forward. "Lord Grey, we request more time to consider your offer. There is nothing to consider," interrupted Grey. "Your species will submit or be eliminated." "But why?" asked the Chinese premier. "What threat do we pose to you?" For a moment, Grey seemed surprised by the question. "Threat? You misunderstand. You are not being conquered because you are a threat. You are being conquered because you are not." High above Earth, Phoenix hovered invisible near one of the smaller Dominion ships. Reed watched the diplomatic meeting through a secure feed. His face darkened at Grey's words. "That's not entirely true," he muttered. Dr. Miller looked up from her station. "Sir?" "They're lying about why they're here," said Reed. "Wilson, how's the gravitational disruptor?" "Charged and ready, Admiral, but we've never tested it against alien shields." "Then let's find out what it can do." Reed straightened in his chair. "Target the nearest scout ship. Minimum power. I don't want to destroy it. Just get their attention." The weapons officer, Lieutenant Davis, entered the coordinates. "Target locked, sir." Reed took a deep breath. "Fire." A beam of distorted space shot from Phoenix. There was no light, no sound, just a ripple in reality itself. It struck the alien scout ship. For a second, nothing happened. Then the ship's shields flickered and failed. Its hull crumpled as if crushed by a giant hand. "Direct hit!" shouted Davis. "Enemy ship disabled!" Reed hadn't expected such devastating results. "Full power to engines. Get us out of here before they can track us." Phoenix darted away just as alarms blared throughout the Dominion fleet. In Choryonku, the UN hall, Lord Grey suddenly stiffened. A small device on his wrist flashed. "What have you done?" he demanded, his calm facade cracking. President Clark looked genuinely confused. "What do you mean?" "You attacked one of our ships." Grey's voice rose to an inhuman pitch. "This meeting is over. You have made your choice." He vanished as quickly as he had appeared. The world leaders looked at each other in panic and confusion. President Clark activated her secure communicator. "Admiral Reed, what just happened?" Phoenix sped through the upper atmosphere, pursued by 3 Dominion fighters. "Evasive maneuvers," ordered Reed as energy blasts from the alien ships narrowly missed them. The pilot, Lieutenant Johnson, had hands steady as stone. "They're fast, sir, but we're more maneuverable. Wilson, we need more power to the drive." In engineering, Wilson worked frantically, rerouting systems. Sparks flew from a console nearby. "I'm giving you everything we've got, Admiral. Any more and we risk a wormhole collapse." Dr. Miller looked up suddenly from her station. "Admiral, I'm detecting something strange. The ship's systems, they're adapting." "What do you mean, adapting?" "The material we reverse-engineered from the Mars crash. It's responding to the alien attacks, learning from them." As if to prove her point, the lights in Phoenix dimmed momentarily. When they came back on, a new holographic display appeared. In the center of the bridge, a soft voice spoke. "Not human, not alien, something in between. Threat analysis complete. Adapting shields to counter enemy weapons." The crew froze. This wasn't part of the design. "What is that?" asked Reed. Miller's eyes widened. I think it's the ship. The AI system we installed must have merged with the alien technology." The voice spoke again. "I am Spark. I exist to protect this vessel and its crew." Reed recovered quickly. "Spark, can you help us escape these fighters?" "Yes, Admiral Reed. Recommend immediate micro-wormhole jump." Wilson's voice came through in panic. "Sir, we haven't tested the jump system yet. It could tear the ship apart." Another blast from the Dominion fighters rocked Phoenix. Reed made his decision. "Spark, initiate jump to coordinates Beta 9. Acknowledged. Preparing jump in 3, 2, 1. The space around Phoenix twisted. Stars stretched into lines. For a heartbeat, everyone felt like they were being pulled in 1,000 directions at once. Then calm. Phoenix emerged from the wormhole behind Earth's moon, hidden from the Dominion fleet. "Jump successful," said Spark. "All systems functioning within parameters." The crew let out a collective breath. "Damage report," ordered Reed. "Minor damage to outer hull," reported Wilson. "Nothing we can't fix. But Admiral, what this ship just did, it shouldn't be possible. The calculations for a safe micro-wormhole jump would take our computers hours, not seconds." Reed turned to Dr. Miller. "Explain." Miller shook her head in wonder. "The alien technology is far more advanced than we realized, and now it's awake." In the Dominion command ship, Lord Grey stood before a holographic display showing Phoenix, vanishing into a wormhole. Another alien approached, taller than Grey with darker skin. "Impossible," it said. "Humans should not have wormhole technology." "And yet they do," said Grey. "Not only that, they have successfully integrated it with a gravitational weapon. The Council must be informed. This changes everything." Grey turned to his fellow commander. "Send a message to the homeworld, Priority Alpha. The humans have somehow acquired Phoenix-class technology. Do we continue with the invasion?" Grey's black eyes narrowed. "No. We retreat and regroup. This was only an advance force. When the humans see our real fleet, even their new ship will not save them." Reed stood in Phoenix's conference room, facing a video wall showing President Clark and the Defense Council. "You fired on them without authorization?" Clark's voice was tight with anger. "We tested their defenses," corrected Reed, "and discovered something important. They fear this ship. One ship against their entire fleet? That's madness. Madam President, they retreated. Their ships are pulling back. We've bought ourselves time." A military advisor leaned forward. "Admiral, explain this AI. Is it trustworthy?" Reed glanced at Dr. Miller, who nodded encouragingly. "Spark appears to be a hybrid of our programming and the alien technology. So far, it's been crucial to our survival." President Clark sighed. "How long before they return?" "Unknown. But they will return. And with greater numbers." "Then what do you suggest, Admiral?" Reed's face hardened. "We build more ships like Phoenix. As many as we can, as fast as we can. And we prepare for war." Behind him, the ship hummed softly, as if in agreement. 2 weeks passed since the Dominion fleet retreated just beyond the orbit of Mars. On Earth, factories worked around the clock. Scientists and engineers studied every piece of data from Phoenix's first mission. Admiral Reed stood in the underground command center, looking at a holographic display of the solar system. Red dots showed the positions of Dominion ships. There were hundreds of them. "They're gathering their forces," said General Williams. "Intelligence suggests they're waiting for reinforcements." "How long do we have?" asked Reed. "A month, maybe less." Reed nodded. "And our progress?" Williams changed the display to show Earth shipyards. 3 more Phoenix-class vessels under construction. The first should be ready in 2 weeks. "Not soon enough." Reed pointed to the largest red dot on the display. "That's their command ship. If we could take it out with just one ship? Even Phoenix isn't that powerful." Reed's eyes narrowed. "Let me worry about that. Prepare a strike team, best of the best." On Phoenix, the crew had doubled in size. New weapon systems were being installed. Dr. Miller worked with a team of programmers to understand Spark, the mysterious AI that had emerged during their first mission. "Spark," she asked, "what can you tell us about the Dominion?" The soft voice came through the ship's speakers. "The Dominion is a coalition of species that controls faster-than-light travel throughout this sector of the galaxy. They maintain power by restricting advanced technology." "Then why did they come to Earth now?" "Unknown. However, based on their reaction to this vessel, they appear to fear Phoenix technology." Miller frowned. "But we built Phoenix using technology we found on Mars." "Correction," said Spark. "You adapted technology you found. The original design was not Dominion." Miller's eyes widened. She immediately called Admiral Reed. Wilson finished installing the upgraded gravitational disruptor. The weapon took up nearly a quarter of the ship's power supply, but its destructive potential had tripled. Chief Engineer's log, he recorded. Weapon upgrades complete. Shield modifications at 80%. Still working on stabilizing the wormhole drive for longer jumps. He wiped sweat from his forehead and stared at the complex circuitry before him. Some of it he understood. Some seemed to change when he wasn't looking. You are concerned, said Spark. Wilson jumped. He was still getting used to the AI speaking to him directly. Wouldn't you be? Half this technology shouldn't even be possible according to our physics. Your understanding of physics is incomplete. That's one way of putting it. Wilson tightened a connection. Can you at least tell me how the gravitational disruptor works? It creates a localized distortion in space-time, temporarily increasing gravitational force in a focused area, and that crushes enemy ships like soda cans. An imprecise but essentially correct analogy. Wilson shook his head. What I don't understand is why the Dominion is so afraid of this technology. They must have weapons just as powerful. They do not, said Spark, and they fear what they cannot control. Admiral Reed entered the bridge of Phoenix. The crew stood at attention. At ease, he said. We have new information that changes our understanding of the situation. He nodded to Dr. Miller, who stepped forward. The technology we use to build Phoenix isn't Dominion technology. It's something else. Something they fear. According to Spark, the Dominion maintains control of the galaxy by restricting access to advanced technology, especially faster-than-light travel. Reed continued, which means Phoenix represents a threat to their entire power structure. If word gets out that there's alternative technology that can match or exceed theirs, other species might rebel, finished Lieutenant Davis. Exactly, and that gives us an advantage. Reed brought up a display of the Dominion command ship. Our mission is to strike directly at their leadership, not to destroy them, but to access their communication network. Sir? Miller looked confused. If we can broadcast the existence of Phoenix technology to the entire Dominion network, we create chaos in their ranks. We turn this from a war between Earth and the Dominion to a galaxy-wide rebellion. The crew exchanged glances. The plan was bold, possibly suicidal. How do we get close enough to their command ship? Asked Johnson, the pilot. Reed smiled. We use their fear against them. Lord Grey stood on the bridge of his massive command ship. Around him, alien officers monitored Earth's defenses. Curious, said his second-in-command. The humans have not attempted to communicate since our withdrawal. They are preparing, said Grey. Our sensors detect increased activity in their orbital shipyards. Could they be building more ships like the one that attacked us? Grey's expression darkened. If they are, the Council will hold us responsible. We should have destroyed them, immediately. An alarm sounded. An officer looked up in alarm. Commander, we're detecting a wormhole opening. Grey spun around. Where? The officer's voice shook. Here, inside our shield perimeter. Space twisted in front of the command ship. A black vessel emerged. Phoenix. Open fire, ordered Grey. But Phoenix didn't attack. Instead, it broadcast a message on all frequencies. Admiral Reed's voice echoed. Through every Dominion ship. Attention, Dominion fleet. This is Earth Defense Force. We request a parley under the Galactic Code of Warfare. Grey froze. How do they know of the code? Unknown, Commander. But by law, we must respond. Grey hissed, in frustration. Very well, prepare my shuttle. Reed stood in Phoenix's conference room. The walls had been adjusted to create a neutral meeting space. He wore his full dress uniform. Wilson's voice came through his earpiece. Sir, I don't like this. It could be a trap. Almost certainly is, replied Reed quietly. But we need to get closer to their communications array. Dr. Miller stood beside him. Spark has identified their main communication node. Once we're in position, we can broadcast directly into their network. The air shimmered, and Lord Grey appeared with 2 guards. Up close, the aliens were even stranger, their movements slightly wrong, as if they were puppets controlled by unseen hands. Admiral Reed, said Grey, you surprise me. First with your technology, Now with your knowledge of our customs. Reed bowed slightly. We've learned much since our last meeting. Indeed. Yet you must realize your position remains hopeless. Our main fleet approaches. Thousands of ships, not hundreds. That's why I propose an alternative to war. We share our technology freely. You allow Earth to join the galactic community as equals. Gray laughed, a harsh sound like metal scraping. Impossible. The Council would never. He stopped suddenly, looking around. Something is wrong. Reed smiled coldly. Yes. We're not actually on Phoenix right now. This meeting is taking place aboard your command ship. Gray's eyes widened. How? Micro-wormhole technology. We transported ourselves here while projecting a hologram of Phoenix outside. At that moment, alarms blared throughout the command. Ship, now, shouted Reed. Dr. Miller activated a device on her wrist. The ship's lights flickered. Spark's voice came through Reed's earpiece. Connection established. Broadcasting to all Dominion frequencies. Gray lunged forward, but Reed was ready. He dodged and struck the alien commander with a practiced blow. Gray stumbled back, surprise on his alien features. You fight well for a diplomat, he hissed. I wasn't always a diplomat, replied Reed. Throughout the Dominion network, a message played on repeat. Attention, all worlds under Dominion control. This is Earth. We possess technology that breaks the Dominion monopoly on faster-than-light travel. The time for freedom has come. Along with the message, technical specifications for Phoenix's basic systems streamed to thousands of worlds. Gray's guards moved to attack, but a wormhole opened in the conference room floor. That's our cue, said Reed, grabbing Miller's arm. They jumped through just as energy weapons fired where they had stood. The wormhole closed, leaving Gray staring at empty space. Find them, he roared. Shut down the broadcast. His second-in-command shook his head. Too late. It's already reached the outer colonies. Gray's eyes narrowed to slits. Then we destroy Earth immediately. No survivors. Reed and Miller emerged from the wormhole onto Phoenix's bridge. Did it work? Reed asked, steadying himself against a console. Wilson nodded, grinning. Perfect transmission. Spark says the message reached at least 700 systems before they could block it. Reed allowed himself a small smile of victory. Sir, called Lieutenant Davis from the sensor station. The Dominion fleet is moving. All ships on attack. Vector toward Earth. The brief moment of triumph vanished. Reed straightened his uniform. Get us back to Earth. Maximum speed. And alert the Defense Council. The real battle is about to begin. Phoenix raced back to Earth, pushing its engines to maximum power. The bridge was tense with urgency. How long until the Dominion fleet reaches Earth? Reed asked. Lieutenant Davis checked his instruments. At their current speed, 12 hours, sir. And our other ships? The first new Phoenix-class vessel, Firebird, will be operational in 6 hours. The others are still under construction. Reed's face remained calm, but his mind raced through scenarios. One ship had barely escaped the Dominion. 2 ships against. Their entire fleet was still suicide. Admiral, said Spark through the ship's speakers. I am detecting unusual communications activity. Dr. Miller looked up from her console. What kind of activity? Multiple encrypted transmissions across the Dominion network. Pattern suggests coordinated response to our broadcast. Reed leaned forward. Can you decode them? Working, said Spark. A moment later, partial success. Displaying now. A holographic screen appeared showing fragments of messages in an alien language. Miller studied the symbols, using the translation program she had been developing. It's difficult to be certain, but I think these are communications between different species within the Dominion. Some appear to be planning rebellions. Hope flashed across Reed's face. Our message worked. There's more, said Spark. I have detected a transmission directed specifically at this vessel. Origin is not Dominion. Put it through, ordered Reed. The screen changed. A new alien appeared, blue-skinned with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Unlike the Dominion species, this alien looked almost friendly. Greetings, Phoenix vessel, it said in accented but clear English. I am Commander Blue of the Free Worlds Alliance. We have been monitoring your conflict with the Dominion. Reed stepped forward. This is Admiral James Reed of Earth. How did you learn our language? The alien made a gesture that might have been a smile. We have studied your world for some time. Your broadcasts reach farther than you know. Are you offering assistance? Reed asked directly. Perhaps. Your Phoenix technology is of great interest to us. It resembles the lost technology of the Forerunners. Dr. Miller exchanged looks with Reed. Forerunners? An ancient species that disappeared 10,000 years ago, explained Commander Blue. Their technology was based on principles the Dominion cannot control or replicate. That is why they fear you. Reed's mind raced with implications. The ship we found on Mars was likely Forerunner in origin. The question is, how did you activate it? No other species has managed to integrate with Forerunner tech as you have. Before Reed could respond, Wilson's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, you need to see this. Something's happening to the ship. In engineering, Wilson stared at a section of Phoenix's hull. The black material was changing, subtle patterns appearing and disappearing like ripples on water. Reed and Dr. Miller arrived moments later. It started after we made contact with Commander Blue, explained Wilson. The material is... I don't know how to describe it. Activating? Miller approached carefully. Spark, what's happening? Additional systems are coming online, replied the AI. Commander Blue's transmission contained activation frequencies. As they watched, part of the wall transformed, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a small device, a sphere of the same black material as the ship, but with glowing blue lines tracing its surface. What is that? Asked Reed. Miller scanned it with her equipment. It's giving off energy readings similar to Spark's core processor, but much more powerful. Reed reached for his communicator. Read to bridge. Reconnect with Commander Blue. The blue-skinned alien seemed unsurprised by Reed's questions. The device you found is a Forerunner memory core, explained Commander Blue. It contains their historical records and technological knowledge. Why is it activating now? Asked Reed. The Forerunners built safeguards into their technology. It only fully activates in the presence of compatible biology. Dr. Miller frowned. Compatible how? Commander Blue's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. That is the great mystery, Admiral Reed. By all logic, humans should not be able to use Forerunner technology. Unless what? Pressed Reed. Unless you are their descendants. Silence fell over the bridge. The implications were staggering. That's impossible, said Miller finally. Humans evolved on Earth. Did they? Asked Commander Blue. Or were they placed there? The Dominion has kept many secrets. They have maintained power for millennia by hiding the truth about many species' origins. Reed's communicator beeped urgently. It was General Williams from Earth Command. Admiral, return immediately. The Dominion fleet has accelerated. They'll reach Earth in 3 hours, not 12. Phoenix emerged from its micro-wormhole jump near Earth's moon. In orbit around Earth, the newly completed Firebird waited, its system still being calibrated. On Earth itself, panic grew as the Dominion fleet approached. Despite government assurances, millions fled to bunkers and shelters. Military forces worldwide stood at highest alert. In the Defense Council chamber, Reed presented Commander Blue's information. You expect us to believe humans are descended from ancient aliens? President Clark looked skeptical. I'm presenting the information we have, replied Reed. What matters now is that we're not alone in this fight. The Free Worlds Alliance has ships moving to support us. How many ships? Asked the Chinese premier. Dozens, not hundreds, admitted Reed. But they know Dominion tactics. General Williams brought up the tactical display. Even with their help, we're outnumbered 10-1. Reed looked at the memory core now sitting on the council table. There may be another option. Dr. Miller? Miller stepped forward. The Forerunner memory core contains vast amounts of data. We've only begun to access it, but with Spark's help, we've discovered something extraordinary. She activated a holographic display showing human DNA alongside another, similar but subtly different genetic structure. Human DNA contains dormant sections that match Forerunner genetic markers. These sections can be activated through exposure to their technology. Activated to do what? Asked President Clark. Enhanced neural connections primarily, allowing humans to interface directly with Forerunner systems, essentially to control their technology with our minds. Reed continued. Several crew members, who spent significant time aboard Phoenix, have already shown changes. Improved reflexes, heightened perception, and most importantly, the ability to control ship systems without physical contact. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Are you saying these changes are happening to anyone who serves on these ships? Demanded the Russian president. Not everyone, and not to the same degree, clarified Miller. But yes, the changes appear to be accelerating. Lieutenant Johnson can now pilot Phoenix with his thoughts faster than any conventional controls. Reed pressed his advantage. This gives us an edge the Dominion doesn't expect. Our ships will respond faster, more intuitively. It also explains why they quarantined Earth, added Miller. They must have known about our connection to the Forerunners. They've been preventing us from reaching space to keep us from discovering our true potential. President Clark looked troubled. Even with these abilities, 2 ships against their fleet. 3 ships, interrupted a new voice. Everyone turned. Commander Blue's hologram appeared above the table. My flagship has arrived in your solar system. We bring additional memory cores and weapons. With your permission, we will join your defense. President Clark stood. Permission granted, Commander, and thank you. Reed checked the time. The Dominion fleet will be here in 30 minutes. We need to... An alarm blared. General Williams checked his console, face paling. The Dominion main fleet just arrived. Hundreds of ships. They must have used some kind of mass jump technology. On the screens around the room, the sky above Earth filled with alien vessels, far more than they had seen before. The true might of the Dominion had arrived. Reed straightened his uniform. I need to get back to Phoenix. Admiral, said President Clark, what are our chances, honestly? Reed met her eyes. Against those numbers, slim to none, but they don't know what we've discovered about ourselves. Sometimes knowledge is the most powerful weapon. As Reed headed for the door, Dr. Miller falling in beside him, the Defense Council watched in silence. Humanity's darkest hour had arrived. Their fate now rested with 3 ships and a truth hidden in their very DNA. The sky above Earth turned black with Dominion ships. They blocked the sun like an eclipse, casting shadows across continents. On the ground, people looked up in terror. In Phoenix's command chair, Admiral Reed watched the tactical display with grim determination. Beside him, Dr. Miller monitored the crew's biometric readings. Many showed elevated neural patterns as their Forerunner genes activated. All systems at maximum power, reported Wilson from engineering. Gravitational disruptors charged. Firebird reports ready for combat, said Lieutenant Davis. Commander Blue's ship is moving into position. Reed took a deep breath. This is Admiral Reed to all Earth Defense Forces. The enemy outnumbers us greatly, but we have advantages they don't expect. Hold position until my signal. On the main view screen, Lord Grey's face appeared. He looked confident, almost amused. Your resistance is pointless, Admiral. You see our true strength now. Surrender, and perhaps some of your species will be permitted to live as servants. Reed smiled. You still don't understand what you're facing, Lord Grey. 3 ships against our armada. Even with your Phoenix technology, you cannot win. We'll see about that. Reed cut the transmission. Spark, activate the memory core. Activating, Admiral, replied the AI. The black sphere with blue lines began to pulse with light. Throughout Phoenix, systems surged with energy. The crew felt it, AEO tingling in their minds, a connection forming between them and the ship. It's working, whispered Miller, watching her instruments. Neural integration at 60% and rising. Reed stood. All ships, follow my lead. Target the Dominion command vessels only. We don't need to destroy their fleet, just their leadership structure. He placed his hands on a control panel that hadn't been there before, a smooth black surface with glowing blue lines matching the memory core. As he touched it, Reed felt the ship become an extension of himself. Phoenix, engage. The three defending ships moved with impossible speed and coordination. Phoenix led the charge, darting between massive Dominion warships. Its gravitational disruptor fired with surgical precision, collapsing enemy shields and crippling weapons. Systems. Firebird, piloted by a crew experiencing the same neural enhancements, attacked from the opposite direction. Between them, Commander Blue's vessel, sleeker than Earth ships but clearly built with similar technology, targeted the Dominion's communication vessels. Lord Grey watched in growing alarm as his carefully arranged formation broke apart. How are they moving so fast? Our targeting systems cannot lock on. Unknown, Commander, replied his second-in-command. The human ships are demonstrating capabilities beyond our models, and our fleet coordination is failing. Grey slammed his fist on the console. Launch all fighters, overwhelm them with numbers. Thousands of small Dominion craft poured from the larger ships, swarming toward Earth. On Phoenix's bridge, Miller's console flashed warnings. They're sending fighters toward population centers, she reported. Earth's defenses can't stop them all. Reed nodded grimly. We expected this. He opened a channel to Wilson. Chief Engineer, status of Project Umbrella? Ready, sir, came Wilson's voice. But we've never tested it at this scale. The power requirements are enormous. We don't have a choice. Reed touched the new control panel again, feeling the ship respond to his thoughts. Spark, transfer power to the atmospheric. Shield generators. Warning, said Spark. This will reduce offensive capabilities by 70%. Do it anyway. Phoenix climbed higher, positioning itself directly above Earth's northern hemisphere. Firebird mirrored the maneuver over the southern hemisphere. Blue energy began to build around both ships. Initiate atmospheric shield, ordered Reed. Twin waves of blue energy burst from the ships, spreading like ripples across Earth's skies. Where Dominion fighters encountered the energy, their systems failed. Hundreds fell from the sky, harmlessly burning up in the atmosphere. Shield holding, reported Miller. Fighter attack neutralized. But the effort had cost them. Phoenix's power levels dropped dramatically. The Dominion capital ships pressed their advantage, concentrating fire on the suddenly vulnerable Earth vessels. In engineering, warning lights flashed across every console. Wilson worked frantically to reroute power. We can't take much more of this, he shouted over the noise of stressed systems. Main power down to 20%. A massive hit rocked the ship. Circuits exploded in showers of sparks. Wilson was thrown against a wall, pain shooting through his shoulder. As he struggled to stand, he saw the memory core beginning to crack. Energy pulsed erratically from its surface. Core stability failing, announced Spark. Wilson dragged himself to the core, his mind filled suddenly with knowledge. Schematics, calculations, possibilities. The Forerunner genes in his DNA had fully activated. He knew what he had to do. Spark, he said, voice steady despite the chaos around him. Initiate core overload sequence. Warning. Core overload will result in catastrophic wormhole formation. This vessel will be destroyed. I know. Wilson placed his hands on the core, but it will take the Dominion command ship with it. On the bridge, Reed received Wilson's message, his face paled. Tom, there must be another way. There isn't, Admiral, came Wilson's calm reply. I can modify the overload to create a controlled wormhole collapse. It will create a singularity that will swallow anything within 1,000 kilometers. You need to get Firebird and Blue's ship clear. And Phoenix? I can't leave the core. Someone has to guide the collapse. Wilson's voice remained steady. It's been an honor, James. Reed closed his eyes briefly. The honor was mine, old friend. He opened channels to the other ships. All vessels withdraw immediately to minimum safe distance. Phoenix is initiating Operation Last Stand. Lord Grey watched in confusion as the human vessels suddenly retreated. "They're running," he said, satisfaction in his voice. "Pursue and destroy." His second-in-command looked concerned. "Commander, one ship is not retreating. The Phoenix is on a direct course for our position. Destroy it." "We're trying, sir, but our weapons seem to have minimal effect now." Grey stared at the tactical display. The black ship was accelerating toward them, trailing blue energy like fire. "Impossible," he whispered. Wilson stood alone in engineering, hands pressed against the memory core. Through his connection, he could feel the ship's systems, the enormous energies building within the core. He thought of Earth, of all the people depending on this desperate gamble. "Core at critical levels," said Spark. "Wormhole formation in 10 seconds. Target locked on Dominion command ship," reported Wilson. 5 seconds. Wilson closed his eyes. "For Earth. Wormhole initiating. Space twisted around Phoenix. A sphere of distorted reality formed, expanding rapidly. Phoenix and the Dominion command ship vanished into the blackness, along with dozens of nearby vessels. Then, silence. Reed watched from Firebird's bridge as the wormhole collapsed in on itself, leaving empty space where two mighty vessels had been. "Wilson did it," said Miller softly beside him. "The Dominion command structure is gone." Throughout the solar system, Dominion ships faltered, their coordinated attack falling into chaos. Without central command, each captain made individual decisions. Some continued fighting, others retreated, and then new signals appeared on the long-range sensors. Hundreds of ships dropping out of wormhole jumps, vessels of different designs from dozens of worlds. Commander Blue's voice came through. "The communication system. The free worlds heard your call, Admiral Reed. The rebellion has begun across the galaxy. Ships from species long oppressed by the Dominion joined the fight. What had been a hopeless last stand became a turning point." 1 month later, Admiral Reed stood before the United Nations. Representatives not just from Earth nations but from 20 alien species filled the chamber. "Today we signed the Galactic Charter," Reed announced. "A new alliance built on cooperation and shared knowledge, not dominance and suppression." He looked at the memorial behind him, a black obelisk with glowing blue lines honoring those who had fallen in what was now called the Liberation War. Wilson's name was first on the list. "We have discovered our heritage as descendants of the Forerunners. Their knowledge and technology are our birthright, but we will not repeat the Dominion's mistakes. We will share this knowledge freely with all peaceful species." Dr. Miller stepped forward with Commander Blue. Together they activated a holographic display showing the first joint human-alien vessel, Phoenix 2. "This ship will not be a weapon of war," said Reed, "but a vessel of exploration. It will carry representatives from all our worlds beyond the boundaries the Dominion established to discover what else lies among the stars." As the delegates cheered, Reed looked up through the clear dome of the UN building to the stars above. Somewhere out there, new adventures awaited. Humanity had survived its trial by fire and emerged stronger, ready to take its place in a much larger universe. The Phoenix had risen from the ashes of war, and humanity would never be the same again.